Konnichiwa, hello, welcome to the channel of Motorbike Nonsense. I'm Tim and this is the new 2023 Honda XL 750 Transalp. Now you probably know this, but Transalp is actually derived from an ancient Japanese word, Transalp, which means Soichiro Honda sits gleefully in the mud with his 21-inch front wheel. But anyway, this is Honda's new Hornet-derived adventure bike type thing. I've been living with it for a couple of weeks. I've been very impressed with it. And here are my final thoughts. Let's go. Not my final thoughts as I'm dying, my final thoughts before I have to give it back to Honda, just so it doesn't start on a dark note. Did I make it dark? Probably a little bit. God, I apologise for how haggard and old I look in that little intro video. And some people are arguing with me on Instagram that this already looks a little bit dated, but I really like the looks of the new Transalp. I think it looks just quite smooth and quite understated, which is kind of Honda's thing, isn't it? But anyway, this is a £9,500 middleweight adventure bike that goes up against things like the KTM 790 Adventure, which annoyingly I'm riding tomorrow, so I can't do a comparison today because this goes back in a second. But yeah, it's obviously based around Honda's rather brilliant new engine that's in the Hornet, the 755cc parallel twin, just under 91 horsepower, a 270-degree crank, which does give it quite a lot of character, which you might not expect from a parallel twin, but is a proper thumper and a proper hooligan, about 75 newton meters of torque. It's got a slightly smaller fuel tank than you might be expecting from an adventure bike. It's just under 17 litres, but it's fairly parsimonious. I've been getting about 65 mpg from this without trying too hard. And yeah, 21-inch front wheel. It's got presence for a middleweight bike and for a Honda, and the headlights actually look quite nice when you turn them on. We're going to get some daytime running light action. Don't know if it's going to come across on camera because it's brighter than the sun reflecting off my head out here, but it's got nice LED headlights. It's got a slightly smaller screen than most adventure bikes, non-adjustable, and it's actually, it gets me right in the top of my visor. I'm 6'3". I would either want a bigger screen or just less of a screen. Frankly, the mirrors are nice and stable. They are wonderful on the move. It's a very easy bike. I'm probably going to use the word easy quite a lot of times because it's very easy like a Sunday morning, this bike. Very easy to ride, very easy to go quickly if you want to, and it's very easy off-road as well, which I've done in a previous video. I won't be doing it in this video, but check out my first ride of this because I took it down a mild green lane. So yeah, from the back, excuse my rubbish on the floor, I think it looks a bit less impressive. You've got this fairly cheap looking exhaust, but you know, who makes a nice looking exhaust these days, apart from occasionally Triumph, but they'll charge you an arm and a leg for it. Rear tail light. And the pillion accommodation is pretty generous. It's got a nice wide seat there with some massive grab rails. So if you want to strap a roll bag to this, it won't be drooping off down the side like your uncle's ball bag. It will actually look quite nice, and you can get a top box. There's loads of luggage options for it. On paper, you'd think the 850mm seat height is a little bit intimidating, but it's quite narrow between your legs, and the suspension's quite soft, so it does squish down a lot when you sit on it. Almost too much for me. I weigh 100 kilos. And the side stand is so long, I have to tilt it away from me once I'm sat on it to get the side stand up, because there's just, it doesn't clear the ground. Maybe I should just lose weight, but I am finding that every time I get this off the side stand, I have to tilt the whole bike to the right a little bit. It weighs about 208 kilos, ready to ride. It's got the Hornet's frame, basically, with a few extra bits. There's that 21-inch front wheel with the preload adjustable Showa fork, and we've got twin piston Nissan brakes, which are axial mounted rather than radially mounted, so they're a bit less fun than on the Hornet. Fun? I don't know, can brakes be fun? They're a bit less instantly grabby. Right, let's quickly show you the electronics on here. Got a 5-inch display up here for your riding modes. I've got it in user with the traction control off. Sport mode, standard, rain, and gravel, which I have been using off-road. And you can see it's got an off-road ABS mode, so you can take the ABS off the back wheel for more control off-road. And you can change your power, your engine braking, traction control, and as I've said, ABS. Now, there is a fuel gauge on here, gear readout, trips, all your consumption. You can see I've been getting 64 mpg down there, battery voltage, etc, etc. So yeah, it's straightforward. It's very similar to the Hornet. Key, not keyless or anything like that. One thing you'll see is missing from here, like on the Hornet, there is no cruise control option, which, I don't know, £9,500, the KTM does have it as an option. So yeah, this doesn't, but whatever. Hasn't got an IMU, traction control is done via wheel speed sensors. And yeah, that's about it. Oh, one other thing about it is it is A2 license compatible, like the Hornet. So you can take it down to what, 48 horsepower is it? And then a dealer can take it back up to the full cojones once you've passed your test. Right, last thing before we go for a ride, quick talk about the options you can get on this bike. There are loads. Crash bars, bash plates, brush guards, panniers, a top box, LED fog lights, radiator grills, tank bags. You can get some little wind deflectors which go here, which is great for longer distances, and you can get a wind deflector on top of the screen, and you can get wider pillion pegs. So Honda has really thought about this as a usable everyday bike, but is it any good? There's only one way to find out. We're going to go for a ride on the Transalp now, and I know it's a grey bike, but it is very metallic. I don't know if that's coming across on the GoPro, but it's a nice shiny grey, albeit I kind of prefer the slightly more retro colour scheme that Honda does. Now, it's also a very easy bike to push around and move around. It's very confidence inspiring if you want to push it around the garage. Yeah, like the Hornet, it kind of fires up with a slightly offbeat, quite bassy thump, which is quite nice. Right, let's hit the road, hopefully not literally. Right, first thing you notice when you ride this is this engine is very easy to ride at low speeds. It might be a parallel twin, but it's just it's very smooth, and it's very friendly low down. The fueling is super crisp, but yeah, it's just got it's just got a lovely drive through the mid-range, and it makes a good noise as well. I think this is my favourite Honda engine at the moment, even including the one on the Fireblade, which is frankly just a bit unnecessary. Yeah, you get the front end going light, and if you turn traction off you can clutch up and all that jazz. It's it's just, I don't know, it's got a real hooligan vibe about it. Back brake is nice and strong as well. I kind of covered that in my first ride. It's got quite a soft front brake compared to the Hornet, but if you're going to take it off road, it's probably what you want. It's not a weak front brake, it is still more than powerful enough to stop you very quickly. It just doesn't have that grabbiness, and that actually suits this bike down to the ground. The suspension, it is soft, it is compliant, and it does by and large float over bumps, so I've never been annoyed by it on this bike. Thank you, Nissan Duke. But it doesn't feel unsupportive when you want to press on, and we're going to get some twisty roads in a bit and ride it a bit more quickly through some bends. And again, it can properly scratch, like you can get to the edge of the tyre nice and easily, and you can lean it over a lot, and it doesn't feel like it's going to run out of ideas. It doesn't feel like a budget bike, and I know it's ridiculous, but $9.5 grand for a middleweight, it's not budget, but it is more affordable than some of its rivals, shall we say. And it's a Honda as well, so presumably it will go on forever and ever. Honda, I still don't know when you decided you were going to have so much fun with this engine. It's just cracking. It's got a really nice induction bark as well. It kind of almost reminds me of a Ducati Multistrada's airbox. Probably can't hear it, but it's there. Anyway, what haven't I spoken about? The riding position is very relaxed. I'm not too leant forward, and yeah, it would be comfortable all day in the saddle, apart from the saddle itself. It is one of those bench type seats, and on like hour-long rides I have found myself shifting around trying to find a new spot of my bum to sit, so I would investigate a comfort seat option if you've got a bony ass like me and you get a bit sensitive. But it's not terrible, I've had worse. The switch gears are easy to use, it's exactly the same from the Hornet, so you've got this uppy downy lefty righty thing. And I think, is this road closed? I think this road is closed, so I'm gonna go the other way. So yeah, it's really comfy to ride by and large. The mirrors stay very, what's the word, free of vibrations, and the dash, even on a really bright day like today, is always really in your face, bright, really contrasty and visible. And sometimes on cheaper bikes that gets compromised, but not on this. So yeah, it's a lot like the Hornet. There's not very much to dislike about it. Now I'm going to get onto a dual carriageway and show you what it's like at motorway speed, 70 miles an hour, because that's where one of its slightly less strong points comes to the fore. Right, we're going to come out of this 50, get up to 70 around here. Ooh, edge of confidence. And that's 70 miles an hour. Now, I don't know if you can still hear me, because the big problem I have with this bike is not a problem that only occurs on the Transalp, but is common to lots of adventure bikes, and that is that the screen is just terrible for me. I get not lots of buffeting, just lots of dirty air hitting me about here. So down here is fine, and then up here is bad, and that hits me right along the top joint of my visor, which forces air through the seal and whistles like crazy in my helmet. So I would stick one of Honda's accessory spoilers on this bike, or an aftermarket one, if I was going to buy this and actually use it myself. And again, I'm 6'3", so I'm quite a tall sod. The other thing, if you're standing up riding this, which you're probably not doing at 70 miles an hour, but you can probably see my pubis. The bars feel quite low down when I'm stood up on it, so when I'm off-road, it's a little bit more of a reach for a tall guy than, like, I think the KTM 890 is from memory, certainly last time I rode that off-road. But that's kind of it. And other than the fact I don't have cruise control, that sort of niggles over with this bike. I haven't really got any complaints. And I'm going to get to a twisty road, have some fun, and show you what it's like in the corners. Now, despite all that parallel twin talk, this bike is still properly fast. It's yeah, it's got more top end than you would think for a parallel twin, but I don't think it quite, from memory, has the same low down grunt as one of the KTM parallel twins. But it's still a really good engine to ring out. Sounds good, and it will go more than fast enough for road use. I just did a big 3-car overtake in 3rd gear, and yeah, I didn't have to really think about what I was doing. It just sailed past everything. Yeah, it's pretty glorious, to be honest. Now, on a twisty road, as I said, it's got really light steering. It turns in nicely, and this corner really does that, mid-corner. And on some bikes that are really stiff, you kind of get taken offline, but this doesn't. It just rails round, and you can feel the suspension absorbing the change in road surface and not transmitting it to you, or, more importantly, changing your line through a corner. So on crappy British roads, this is one of the better bikes I've ridden in terms of suspension, but it still gives me decent confidence feedback and all the rest of it. So yeah, I can really recommend this if you want to dissect some bumpy, crappy roads quite quickly. Not as quickly as on a GS maybe, but that's got way more torque than this, so it's a different kind of kettle of badgers that cost twice as much. What I'm trying to say, it's a really good bike for British B roads, like the Hornet was. This has just got a little bit more wind protection, although slightly annoying with the screen for me. And nothing is wrong with it. It handles brilliantly, it stops well enough, and it accelerates really well. In case you're wondering, this bike I've been riding does not have the quick shifter fitted, so I've been doing it manually. And again, the Hornet I rode didn't have a quick shifter fitted. It's an option, and that was also fine. Clutchless upshifts, the way forward. Or get a quick shifter if you want. Now, someone's inevitably going to ask about the tractability of this engine. How well does it pull through the gears? And I'm doing like 35 in 5th gear. If I accelerate, it doesn't chunter, it just gets up to speed really nicely. So yeah, I think I did that test in my Hornet video as well from memory. Even 6th gear at 40 miles an hour doesn't feel like it's gonna explode in a cloud of sushi. It's great. So yeah, let's get back to me for a conclusion, where I'll probably say it's really good again. Have I said it's really good? Because yeah, it's really good. To sum up, I really like the new Honda Transalp. Just like the Hornet, that engine is kind of the star of the show. It is easy to ride, it's very smooth, but it's got poke when you really want it. And if you want to mess about a bit, you can turn traction control off and do stunts and things on it. I'm not really at that level, but it's kind of the sort of bike, like the Aprilia Touareg a few years ago, that's encouraged me to go green laning. It's a friendly, not giant, is a friendly friend off-road, and as long as it's not doing anything too technical, too muddy or too slippery, it just looks after you. And I've really enjoyed kind of just pootling around some green lanes, but then on the road it's not really compromised. It still handles really neatly, it turns in sharply, it holds a line nicely. There's none of that old school 21-inch front end wobbliness. I guess the only downside is your tyre choice will be a little bit more limited, but hey, I think it's a cool bike. It might not look as edgy as a KTM, and it's not got the same kind of aggression as the KTM parallel twins have, but sometimes you don't want that, and for 9.5 grand you can ride away on this and just be happy, whereas the KTM you would need to put some options on it and then unlock things once demo mode has all the rest of that. So yeah, it is a seriously good bike, one of the best all-round bikes I've ridden this year, and I'm going to give it 9.5 Tim Roadies out of 10, which is high praise. And if you're interested in a middleweight adventure bike, don't overlook it just because it's a bit grey. Anyway, thank you for watching. Hopefully this has been helpful. Hit the like button if it has. And I want you to go down to the comments and leave me the Japanese word for muddy puddle. And I will see you next time when I won't be wearing a Michelin t-shirt on a bike that's got Dunlop tyres. Someone somewhere in the brand marketing team somewhere is going to be quite angry at me, but whatever.